we've seen Suhel Seth in various forms. There is a mild confusion about what he does. I'm quite clear about it because I've seen him for the past 10 years. Funnily enough, social media looks at him as a political commentator. Please note, there's a mild difference and he's not paid me for this show. Anybody in marketing and sales will be able to detect the nature of politics and what's happening on the ground more than the politicians themselves, because your mind works from a marketing viewpoint. So, Suhel, why don't you tell the audience exactly how you got here, and we'll keep it nice and short. I know your education was in Nainital, Calcutta, you're now Delhi-based and all over traveling. Just for the...
So I started out in advertising with Ogilvy, earlier as an intern with Ram Ray at Response in Calcutta, who to my mind was the most unbelievable man I've ever worked with. He was an out-of-the-box human being. He brought to life the whole concept of lateral thinking, almost Edward de Bono style. I then worked in Ogilvy, worked with great people, worked on great brands like Tata Steel, Shaw Wallace. Then I joined Peregrine and joined the world of finance. Before that, ITC Classic Finance. So I've done advertising, finance. Then my brother and I started Equus with Martin Sorrell being an investor. Then I got tired of advertising, and then I started counselage. So what do? I advise chairmen and CEOs across the world on branding and marketing. So that's the professional life.
Correct.
Why are people confused? Because I do 100 things, and I like doing 100 things, and I'm not worried about what people think, because if they are tunnel visioned or unilateral in their thinking, that's their problem. So I do theatre, I've done films, I write, I speak. Now you choose whatever you like.
Are you being punished for being multifaceted? Is that what's happening?
I don't care. You see, the point is, I would feel punished if I cared. Do you really think I care what you think or what someone else thinks? I don't give a monkey's toss. Because A, they're not paying my bills. B, I'm not marrying their daughter.
No.
C, I'm not even interested in what they think, because they are not of the intellectual stature who can judge either me or anyone. And besides, here I have a very clinical view of life. We are so worried about being popular and doing the right thing. And that, to my mind, is the fundamental failing in the world today.
500%.
Because earlier, what happened was, you said what you felt. Today, you've got to be proper. Arey yaar, I'm not pissing off that gender. As someone told me the other day, oh, what do you think of LGBT? I said, actually, I think of A to Z. But now you can't say anything. I can't call you a woman. I have to say it. You might say it is not right. Call me the. I can't call you the. So what the hell are you supposed to say?
A bit of Suhel, which a lot of us don't know about.
So to start at the beginning, I was born in 1963 in Calcutta, if you insist, at the Metropolitan Nursing Home at 0800 hours, and I've been punctual ever since. But so we grew up in Calcutta. It was a great growing up, as it were. Parents were very, very strict, as they should be, but they were strict with a lot of empathy. And you can ask some of my friends, Atul Singh and all, who then went on to run Coca-Cola. I was seized with books. My afternoon, so I've always done things religiously, in the sense, I used to finish school, come home, have lunch, siesta, go to the British Council. The advantage was, in those days, British Council was the only place which had generators, and we had tremendous load shedding. And they had those VCRs, or wahan hum log videos dekhte the. That's where I grew up watching Derek Jacobi on all the BBC Shakespeare plays, blah, blah, blah. But what used to happen was, I was always into extracurriculars. So, you know, some of the jokers say, aapko TV pe dekha. Because I've been on television since youth time, in Doordarshan days. So it's not new for me. But what were we encouraged to do? I was already a debater. I won every debate across this country. Every. I mean, you name it, ma'am. And you ask people of our vintage.
You like mood sessions or debates?
Forget, mood session abhi paida hua hai.
Achha, abhi
I'm talking about genuine, honest debating, or just a minute, or all of that. And I had and continue to have the ability to actually warm up with much older people. So when Rusi, Modi and I met, and you know, I don't have that level of preference, but it was a great relationship. R.K. Lakshman, the cartoonist.
Oh, lovely.
Great. But R.K. Lakshman, again, was a marketing relationship initially. I wanted him to do something called Images of Calcutta, along with Kushwant Singh. How did Kushwant Singh and I meet? Kushwant came to see my play where I acted as Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in Bhutto, which he then goes on to describe in his biography as the best acting he had ever seen. So one thing led to another. So there are evenings which I have spent with R.K. Lakshman, Kushwant Singh, Mulk Raj, Anand Prakash, Tandon and me. Then when we started, when I started advertising, again, I had great leaders. You know, Ram Ray, who was the founder of Response, actually designed the card for Bhutto. Today your bosses would say, "Hey, please nahi karo, just work." We were encouraged to be multidisciplinary. We were encouraged to do things which were beyond the pale of duty. And that's what we did. We had great client relationships. And that's how it's been. And let me tell you, the only way you can build a relationship is by not asking for anything.
Finish these statements from me. Suhel Seth tries to avoid.
Stupidity.
Suhel Seth wishes people understood that.
English.
If the whole world was in one room, what would you tell them today's date?
Perform or perish.
Interesting. Suhel Seth learned that people are.
Basically dumb.
Few things Suhel got wrong about life.
Life itself.
You can't be life itself. You have done something good things.
No, I don't care what good things I've done. No one will remember. In India, if you're a Hindu, people forget you after 13 days. 13 days they'll remember because they have to be vegetarian. But once the Tervi is done, you're out.
Fair enough. What do you tell your daughter about one thing that she must follow in her life?
I never tell her anything. I always read to her. My wife reads to her. We encourage her to, go out amidst nature. This whole thing, what will you grow up and be, and what should you, who are we to tell people here?
True. What have you learned from her?
Nothing. I've learned patience actually. One thing I've learned is
it's a big
patience.
one.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a big one. A very wise man once told me, Shweta, if you don't fit into their box, they are confused about you, right?
But why do you care?
Why do you care? Agreed.
Why do you care?
Agreed. You are at the stage of your life where you have commented across industries, right? When you're advising CEOs, chairmen. Now, it is very important that people understand that a lot of your stance is your personal, doesn't need to be left, doesn't need to be right, doesn't need to be centered. It is what you feel about a particular situation. What would you tell your audience? This is how you should be seeing news today.
I don't care about what the audience thinks, frankly. A, they're not paying my bills. B, I'm not there because of them. And C, I'm not a public figure.
A lot of them are saying, which side is he on? But
I don't have to be on a side. That is the stupidity.
Correct.
That's why I told you 99% of the people are dumb. Because why should I be on a side? I have to be on the side of an issue, not on the side of an ideology. A, B, if in my analysis, I can praise a Rahul Gandhi, which I did for Bharat Jodo Yatra,
yes,
and criticize him for his inconsistency, at the same time I can praise a Narendra Modi for his decisiveness, which side am I on? And again, some idiots will say, oh, he's keeping everyone happy. No, I'm keeping only one person happy.
Me.
I don't give a toss about whether you're happy, your mother's happy, your sister's happy. I really don't care.
We're going to move on from politics. We both abhor it in a quite.
I don't abhor it.
I abhor it sometimes. But let's get back to the meat of your DNA type. India Inc. then versus India Inc. now. In front of you, what changed?
I think the ability to imagine, the ability to implement, and the ability to ideate in a borderless world. See, what had happened was, from 1950 to almost 1991, till the liberalization. And liberalization also didn't happen because he wanted it. It happened at the point of a gun, because we were defaulting. That's why the nation had to liberalize. What did you see? You saw the unshackling of the average Indian. And I think what Modi has done is, from 2014, he has unshackled it further. Why? Why? Because he has told the Indians, and he has made the ecosystem available for an Indian to believe. Now, you may hate his politics, and by all means do. But you have to give credit for three things that have happened in the last 10 years. Number one, the average Indian has never been more confident. Number two, the average Indian has never had greater transparency in his dealings both with the government and outside within the ecosystem, whether it's digitization, blah, blah, blah. Number three, the diaspora both, I mean, the diaspora as well as people in India are being looked at differently by American investors. I mean, for Jamie Dimon to say what he did about Modi is remarkable. Now you will have these stupid leftist people or the so-called left liberals and the wokes. Who cares? यार भाई आप एक बात मुझे कहो. When a caravan is moving, there are dogs barking, there are people throwing
There's
stones. Does the
collateral
caravan
damage,
stop?
yeah.
No. Caravan continues. You have to be Robert Frost-like. You see two divergent paths and you decide which one you will take. Now you can't only be deciding and not take a path.
Point. A very silly but a very, very important question. Had social media existed 20 years ago, do you think the earlier governments would have such an easy time?
Or a difficult time. We
Or
don't
an
know.
extremely difficult time?
I don't know. See, I'm a great believer that history is a country with no citizens. I can't look back in the past, and I'm not George Osborne to write a play called Look Back in Anger either.
Fair enough. And is that something, if you were standing in a room of students and the way they're looking at political scenario right now, geopolitical scenario right now, what would be that one thing as a brand guy, what would you train them to read news as? There always is context. Like you kept saying, this context. People are just not getting context.
I would ask them to absorb information, but believability has to be contextualized in relation to A, your capacity to absorb, B, your capacity to understand, and C, your capacity to interpret.
However,
if they don't do it, they don't do it.
Hence the confusions.
See, I mean it with great responsibility.
Fair enough.
I'm not being facetious when I say that 99% of the world has been dumbed down to such an extent that we are only cookie cutters. We are regurgitating the nonsense that's fed into us because it's an easy, lazy way out. It's much like how brands use celebrities for brand endorsement. I've always said, if a brand is great, it doesn't need a celebrity.
How
You
true.
may need it initially in order to cut the clutter, but you don't need it on a long-term basis.
Integrity is an ability to stand by any idea. Good, bad, ugly, Ayn Rand. Can that be said about brand building?
Absolutely. In fact, brand building, now you're quoting Ayn Rand, but please remember, existentialism is only an extension of the core belief system. And if you read Ayn Rand's Fountainhead, which I hope you have, and then see the only play that she ever wrote, which was Night of January 16, you will see that no one, whether it was Ayn Rand, before that, if it was Plato or Galileo, whether it was Freud, Bernard Levy, all human existence is contextual.
Correct.
You are rich
It's not
in
flats.
relation to someone who is not as rich. You are educated in relation to someone who is not as educated. You're good because there are bad people. I mean, bad in terms of capability. So it's all. And let me tell you, the only thing that will win is integrity. Why? ये घोड़े बेच के सोना is a very important attribute of human existence. If you have the ability to sleep well at night, it means you haven't harmed anyone. Of course, we would harm people. I have harmed people through my utterances. They may be irresponsible, but have I meant them to be irresponsible? And there you must take into account what George W. Bush, 42, means the son, who presided over 9/11 and the aftermath, when asked that there were no weapons of mass destruction, his response was, as president, I had to act on the information that was made available to me. My actions were based out of integrity. That action may have been a mistake, but the integrity was unwavering. So you and I can make mistakes, but are we making mistakes in a manipulative manner or through misinformation? Misinformation is fine, but manipulation is not. So therefore, integrity also has to have certain benchmarks of candor and benchmarks of believability.
Are we judging our leaders according to how, should we judge our leaders, whoever they may be, wherever they may be, according to what a nice guy is he? Or should we judge them at greatest administrators?
Both.
Both.
See, you can't judge someone. Okay, I used to say this earlier and I will say it again. You don't invest in countries you hate. You don't invest in people you hate. You don't be friends with people you dislike. So the likability factor has to be there. But nice is an obtuse thing. It's like, in Delhi or Bombay, some kiddie party, oh, he's a nice boy. What nonsense is that? So you've got to qualify it. But by and large, you don't have to be evil. But that doesn't also mean you have to be unwaveringly groveling in order to be popular.
One of the more challenging brand building story, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Very simple. It was a bread, Harvest Gold. At that time in Delhi, modern bread used to be available. We had a challenge that how do we create a distinction for a bread, which, by the way, is by and large in those days was commoditized. Those days you didn't have sourdough and multigrain and all that nonsense. So we said, let's actually be self-deprecatory. And we created a campaign saying, Bakwas advertising first class bread. And every Friday we used to run a limerick. And the limerick was contemporary. It was on current affairs. So you could take someone's firki without harming anyone. And in those days you could laugh. You had the ability to laugh at yourself.
No, we can't
People had the
anymore.
ability to laugh with you. Today, some bugger will take you to court. Yeah? I mean, that's how pernicious and intolerant we've become.
Talking about brands, I think Indian hospitality makes one of the finest brands, doesn't it? You're pretty much airborne 90% of the time that I know of you. What makes it so different? And let's go ahead of hospitality or the way we welcome people
It's
or the culture. What is it?
Cultural DNA in India. The cultural DNA is we tend to look after our guests. जो मेहमान घर आया or या घर आए, he mustn't go hungry. He mustn't. Now, if you extrapolate that, see, ultimately, you don't buy a brand, you buy a benefit. You don't buy a hotel room, you buy a good night's sleep. You don't buy Colgate, you buy great teeth. So, if the benefit is overpowering and enhancing, it'll work. What has happened to India? India has multifarious magnets of attraction. If it's spiritual solace, we have that. If it's wellness, we have that. If it is, wildlife, we have that. We have mountains, we have beaches, we have 7,200 kilometers of a coastline, sadly without a marina.
Fair enough.
But we've got all of that. We've got real palaces, we've got false palaces, we've got real kings, we've got false kings sitting in parliament. So we've got everything.
On the branding and the marketing side, you've handled pretty hardcore industries as well, and it's not just about soft lifestyle aesthetic.
No, yeah,
brands,
steel,
per se.
power.
There
I mean,
you
how
go.
hardcore can it get?
Exactly, how hardcore can it get?
Cement.
What did you do with cement?
Well, Tata Cement I launched along with Piyush Pandey.
I see.
And you know how? Because Tata Steel would produce as a byproduct a lot of slag. And slag was just rising up as mountains of pollution in Jamshedpur. So we converted that and we created slag cement. I mean, cement out of slag. So the brand was Tata Cement.
How did you arrive at what you did with it? Tell me your process.
So in those days, I don't know what these Johnnies are doing today. In those days, we were very clear that strategy had to come before creative. And that creative would flow out of strategy so that there's measurement, both at the agency end and at the client end. So we were very clear that again, and here I must credit Piyush Pandey. People were buying cement क्योंकि उनके घर कुछ कहते हैं. So when we did Asian Paints many years ago, before you were born, in Calcutta, I created and worked on two programs. One was Sharat Shaman and one was Shiromani Purushkar. Sharat Shaman was the original and obviously the original and therefore the pioneer of awarding puja pandals for their beauty.
Oh,
And Sharat Shaman was awarding people, Shiromani Purushkar was awarding great Bengalis. The first Shiromani Purushkar Lifetime Achievement Award was given to Satyajit Ray. So that's the historical bend that one has seen. And that's how things worked. But today, everything is cookie cutter here. So obviously, times have changed.
I have a conversation with the boys also. It has become quite, it's all for velocity and not really for tenure. I think those
Now you're
days
talking
have
like
been-
Rahul Gandhi. I don't know what it means, but
I
I
have no
guess you're
idea.
right.
I don't know if he said that. The Indian consumer is exceptionally known to be price conscious whilst creating their own wealth. What is the big difference when you travel overseas? For the audience generally who may not travel that much, I see people commenting like, "Oh my God, the best! It's so lovely and it's so free." I'm like, "You must be a tourist because you've not stayed there and paid taxes. Is a different ball game altogether." I've been overseas. You've traveled overseas. It is one of the most comfortable countries to stay in. I mean, I wouldn't think of an RIP right
India.
now. India.
I would love
is
this. Yeah, I don't think there's a better country
But why?
because this is our home. This is who we
Besides,
are.
some people
This
don't
is
like their
our
home.
weather. This is our people.
People
This
don't-
is
some
our
people don't like their
behavior.
home.
To hell with those people, yeah.
Okay.
And half those jokers are economic fugitives. They have to live elsewhere because they've stolen from this country. They stole on taxes. See, I'm no one to judge. You're asking me, would I live anywhere else? No. Would I ever change my passport? No.
No.
Would I ever change my Indian identity? No. Would I be squeamish about my undying love for Indian food? No. Would I have Indian food no matter which country I'm in? Yes. Would I also have Chinese food no matter which country I'm in? Yes. There is no need to be pretentious ever. Because ultimately you're only accountable to yourself. You know, God to kisi ne dekha nahi.
No.
Jab marenge, then there's no point because we won't be able to see. So anyone who says, oh, but you know, Bhagwan, ultimately you are only accountable to yourself, to your conscience, to your good or bad taste.
Fair enough.
So the rest doesn't matter.
I've been wanting to talk to Suhel about a few of the big wigs, people who are branding themselves. They have seen India change as a brand, and they themselves have been actually quite solid and have not changed. Two big brands which come to your mind, Suhel, tell us a bit about.
No, there are many. I mean, but if you're talking about industry, I assume,
Industry?
because I've had the honor, the undying privilege of having worked with Mother Teresa. I had a great relationship with Mrinal Sen. So, you know, it's multiple fields one has worked in, yeah. I won't put this phrase larger than life because that seems to suggest that there is no truth to that person's largeness.
Fair enough.
So let me
I stand
tell you
corrected.
about Mr. Tata. I think very, very few human beings have walked the planet like he. And I say it because I've known him since 1990, which is what, now almost 40 years or whatever it is, 44 years or whatever it is. The thing is, the man's innate decency, his ability to think, but more importantly, his ability for empathy and compassion is what is so unique about him. And remember, when he took over the House of Tata in 1992, the whole House of Tata was run by these satraps. So you had Darbari Seth running Tata Chemicals and Tata Tea. You had Rusi Modi, who I loved, running Tata Steel. You had Kerkar running Indian Hotels. You had, so you had all these. You had Mulgaonkar running Tata Motors, Telco in those days. What did Ratan Tata do? He created a Tata identity, which was much like what Jamshedji Tata had envisaged, the founder of the House of Tata. And the founder of the House of Tata had envisaged only, and which Dorab Tata, you know, brought to fruition, is that we are in business for the purpose of our community. We're not in the business to make money. Today, 66% of Tata Sons is owned by Tata Trust. That entire dividend goes every year back to society. That's a big thing. And to my mind, if people can stay the course, steer their lives, be as empathetic, and yet be visionaries in the business area, they tick all the boxes, both as human beings and as pioneers. I think that's what Ratan Tata is. Having said that, it's not only Mr. Tata's decency that I can comment on. His zest for life, his ability to joke, his ability to prank, his ability to laugh, his simplicity of cuisine, his attention to detail, his sense of minimalism, his adroitness with design. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has flown an F-16. Until recently, he had a flying license for a Falcon.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He's an adept car lover. He's an architect by training. Did his internship in Jamshedpur. I mean, you look at the universe the man has straddled. You know, I'll tell you one thing. There is no Indian who is as connected as Ratan Tata is in terms of globally. Whether it's the Rockefellers or whether it's the Rothschilds, whether it's King Charles, whether it's, you know, Obama or Biden, that respect has been built because of what you bring to the table. It's not because of how much you own or who you are or what your wealth quotient is. And I see the same thing happening slowly in Mukesh. Because ultimately, just like organizations start as organizations, then become corporations, then become institutions. Human beings start as human beings, then become inspirational, and then become statesmen.
Are you amused or you're happy about the fact that states which were almost ignored for the longest time, me coming from one of them, from Orissa, suddenly have found a newfound placehold on the map? Is it a pure effort of from the government, or have the people also sat up and said, we want to
Obviously,
arise?
the people, yeah. Today, the
there
young
were people
person
were there
in
then
Bengal,
also.
yeah, but that time they were lazy. Today, people are seeing. See, the one thing that television has done is not give us just news anchors. It has also shrunk the world. Earlier, I would never know what is being consumed in America, what entertainment shows are there, what OTT platforms exist. Today, the world is borderless. You know, there was a famous Japanese managing partner of McKinsey, Kenichi Ohme, Ohmae, who wrote a brilliant book many years ago in the 90s called A Borderless World, where he talks about these things. Today, we literally live in a borderless world. Yes, national identity is coming back to haunt us in some parts.
Yes.
But by and large, we live in a borderless world. So why should the guy in Bhubaneswar not want to emulate the guy in Manhattan? Because the world has shrunk.
Interesting.
And he's seeing the fact that he is being deprived of opportunities. So he's putting pressure on his government or on the administration. And the goddamn administration should bloody well do something about it. Because today politicians are also being accountable, are being held accountable. The only breed that is never accountable are the bureaucrats, but even that's happening. Modi is making them accountable.
Now, yeah, so that's
So I'm saying, in a sense, we are seeing a great administrative and aspirational evolution for India, which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing. If tomorrow somebody had to create a trustworthy media outlet, and everybody thinks every media is aligned, do you think any media which is centered even remaining out there?
I don't know.
Is it possible? I see quite a lot of news and I don't think there is.
But yeah, you know, this is again, to my mind, with due respect, an illogical argument. I'll tell you why. Why should we deprive anyone of an opinion? My point is not that you have an opinion. My point is when you hide that opinion and convert it into hard news.
Word.
So I used to say this, the Guardian has an opinion, it has a stand. In the US, you had newspapers and magazines endorsing or non-endorsing campaigns or candidates. I see no harm. You must declare where you stand. You must not use
Clearly.
subterfuge. The problem I have is with subterfuge. When you say you're neutral, but actually you're pushing an agenda that is definitely non-neutral.
On a lighter note, is the world missing humor altogether? And
Totally.
what
Humor,
is-
satire.
What happened? What is going on? You can't really make a joke on anybody, and that is something which even I struggle with. And something as casual as I was sitting with, and this is a backstory, I was sitting with a very lovely man, and we were rolling, and I asked him...
Rolling as in...
On the camera.
Oh, I thought rolling cigarettes or something.
No, on the camera. And I asked him...
You're lucky I didn't ask you the other rolling.
No, thank God for that. I asked him, how was the state of law then and versus now? He was just generally commenting that, things are very complicated. The process and protocols are very complicated. We deal with complications such as terrorism and security, which is a simpler complication than a rape. What the people got is he called rape simple. I wanted to shoot myself. It is so stupid. What would you, if you could please sit in a room with the journalist and tell them, contextualize every news, would that make a lot more?
That is not the problem. The problem is scholarship. The problem is lack of reading. The problem is these jokers haven't read Shaw or Oscar Wilde or Mark Twain, or for that matter, Dinkar or Premchand. I think it was Dinkar में एक कहानी थी. अश्वमेधा जो एक white stallion था, उसको एक बार एक dacoit ने रोका, and he mounted the horse and stole it. This horse used to belong to a priest. The priest knew that this horse has been stolen. And how was it stolen? The dacoit dressed up in the garb of a beggar and stole the horse. So the priest goes to the beggar's house and he says, look, You have stolen this, I know, it's fine. But aap na, come back to the square and I want to gift you this horse. So this guy said, why? He says, because you see, if I don't, then logon ka bharosa over someone who's genuinely begging for alms, wo uth jayega. Now for a lot of people, it may be non-serious or serious. But look at the way. Now, look at Oscar Wilde. And it's true about our lives. We say it all the time. In The Importance of Being Earnest, there's a line which says, relatives are a tedious pack of people who haven't the slightest idea of how to live or when to die. Now, we all say that about our relatives. But we can't put it in so many words. Now, the problem is there's a lack of scholarship. There is also a lack of logic. And all of this is happening because our education system is screwed. Our education system is designed to produce degree holders, not knowledge cravers. So when you don't crave knowledge and instead crave degrees, that's the problem.
International brands in India, what do you think happened? They come here hoping for massive sales. Where are they messing up? A lot of international brands are messing up in India.
Because they believe that it's a market where you can dump. They don't realize that the Indian customer sabka baap hai bhai. First though, no, and this is a myth that, oh, Indian customer is price conscious. Every customer in the world is price conscious. The Indian customer is value conscious because we also have a karmic connection with consumer brands. And I'll give you an example. मैं बनियान पहनता हूँ. जब ये बनियान में एक छेदा हो जाए, the banyan will be used in the kitchen sink.
पोछा, झाड़ू,
नहीं, then 4 होल हो जाए, it will be used for पोछा. 6 होल हो जाए, it will be used to block some leaking pipe. Refrigerator की आप देख लो. The average age of a refrigerator globally is about 7 years. In India, it's 23 years. Because fridge खत्म हो जाता है, then it becomes a cupboard. जब cupboard खत्म हो जाती है, it goes to the garage. So we never give up. We have a karmic connection. There will be ultimate rebirth and rebirth and rebirth. Look at Rahul Gandhi. How many times has he been reborn?
That's a brand.
From 2004, when he became a member of parliament, in any other company, you would have been accountable for your screw-ups. He's only rising from strength to strength.
I mean, you have to give it. He has stayed on that gear for a very long time. The brand has tenure.
But at least he's got consistency.
That's what I'm trying to say. Suhel Seth, it has been lovely and candid.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.